Hi, Billy here again, and I'm here with part 2 of how to draw anything, the basics. This is about shading to help you with your sketching and your drawing. Now again, just a very quick overview of materials that you will use for drawing, so you can keep a sketchbook or just use paper. Pencils, I use everything from, mainly my main drawing is from 2H right the way through to 8B. This one is a 2B pencil, and that's the one that I use most of the time for most of the work. But if I want darker, then I can use 4B or 8B or 2H. Technical pencils are great if you just want consistent lines, and you can put different grade leads in those as well. Drawing and shading and detail include using erasers. Now again, I use the Staedtler Mars Plastique and also De La Rowney putty rubber, which you can knead into shapes, and that can help you to get various detail. But you'll also want a very special tool, which is your finger. You can smudge with it, and you can spread the pencil around a bit, or you can use kitchen roll, or you can also get these rolled up bits of paper to actually smooth and smudge to a much more accurate, detailed level. Using these are absolutely fantastic for very, very highly detailed drawings. Now if you remember this drawing of Guy Martin that I showed you in part 1 on using the shapes on the basics, then this is over a week's worth of work. There was lots of very, very, very fine shading. All of the detail down the side of the fairing took a long time to do, and using this incredible little paper stick to help smudging is fantastic. You need a sharp knife to cut the end off, because they can go quite black eventually at the end, and that'll just leave a smudge rather than actually allowing you to clean up and smudge out the clean areas if you want nice light shading. Whereas I used to use just kitchen roll, and you could fold that to quite a fine point, but this you can get to a really, really detailed point. And again, your finger is absolutely fantastic. Sharpening your pencil, I use a desk one. It's one of the usual ones that you used to see in school if you're of a certain age like me, and just put them in and it'll take it to quite a nice point. If you want to sharpen it anymore, you can sand it with very fine sandpaper or a nail file if you want a very fine point. But that's where these technical pencils, this is me admitting to being dumb. I did technical drawing BC before computers. My technical drawing teacher used to have a pair of compasses that were about a metre long that had chalk in, and he used to draw on the blackboard. And we used to sand pencils, 2H pencils, down to a fine point. And then I discovered technical pencils, but I never ever used them until a couple of years ago. I always used just normal pencils, and the amount of time you spend sharpening pencils, and a normal little pencil sharpener, the blade will eventually go blunt as you keep on using it and pushing it in, and it keeps snapping the lead. So these things are great, and you can also get little battery powered electric ones from most stationery suppliers as well. Check them out, they're well worth using and utilising, and I say I've used this one for years. It's just been a very, very faithful little friend for sharpening my pencils. But we want to get on with drawing and shading, and as I said, we've got the Guy Martin, which is the very high end of, that's well over a week's work. 5 to 8 days have gone into the Guy Martin drawings. Then you've got a day and a bit's worth of work, which is Rob Austin. This was in part 1, I was talking about the shapes. If you click on the link, you'll actually see this from blank paper right the way through. This is all sketching, and you'll see in the video me using just very, very quick sketching techniques and using the actual pencil type paper smudge tool, which is this, to actually across the bonnet to smudge various bits and parts. But most of the rest of it is just the pencil work going in. Again, great fun to actually use and utilize is this incredible little tool. I mean, again, you can use kitchen towel, which will help, but again, click on the video and you'll see that from start to finish, from blank paper to finished art. Or you have this live sketch, which I showed you in the first video as well. Again, remember I was talking about the shapes, boxes, rectangles, to actually make everything. Little rectangles make arms, makes the body, circles and ellipses for the heads. That's how you can construct everything and build it up. But some of the pencil work in here was smudged with my finger. So you just scrape the pencil on and then smudge it down with your finger very quickly. You do get a black finger when you do that. I won't do that now because I'm going to show you how you get a black finger in a second. I don't want to smudge this drawing anymore because it was finished and it was a wonderful piece to do at a live music event in about 40 to 50 minutes. So we shall get on with drawing. And remember, in the first video about doing the shapes, there's a couple of things that you really need to remember. One is enjoy your art, and the other is practice, and just practice and doodle. And remember, you can use scraps of paper, drawing on top of magazines, newspapers, whatever you're into, whether it's cartoons, comic books, motorsport, horses, anything like that. Just get the images. You can draw over the photographs with a pen or a pencil just to help you get your hand and your eye and your coordination in. But as I said in part one, we had shapes, we had boxes that you needed to draw, and you can put those together, triangles and circles and ellipses. So I'm just going to draw a big box to help you with your shading. So if we draw a large box, again you can imagine in the back that line would go to that point. So you can see how the whole set of shapes of boxes come together. But imagine if you had light coming down from here onto the top left hand corner. This is going to be the lightest point and this is going to be the darkest point. And shading any object is going to have, you can see here down this mug, you've got a shadow going down this side, shadow inside, because the light's coming from this direction, and you've got a lighter point on there. The same thing as when we did the HD box. If the light comes, you've got the lighter side here, it's a bit darker on the top, but then the shadow side will be here. So having directional light, whichever way it comes from, you need to do your shading to make it work accordingly. And again, using various techniques, you can actually sort that out. So you've got one that's called cross hatching, so you can just draw lots of lines and then do lines again over the top of it. This is what you have to do if you're doing pen and ink. This is how comics used to be done, because it's just a solid, consistent black line. You would build up the shadow by doing lots and lots and lots of lines, but getting smaller down. So the lighter end is here where there's less cross hatching, and the darker end is here where there's more. Again, with drawing you can smudge, you can do all kinds of things, but you can also use the grades of the pencil from 2H or 6H, which is very, very light. And here, if I just do a quick light bit of sketching with a certain amount, you can barely see that it's made a difference. 6H pencil is so light that you will just get a very, very, very nice fine grey tone. So if you're doing something that's very light and you don't want dark lines, use something like a 2H. If you got a gift of those pencil sets and you get all the different leads, and you can see how it says from 6H to 6B, this is how you can utilise those different grades of pencil to help you with your shading, to make your drawing more different. Now again, using the same kind of strength, you can see there that that's a little bit darker, that's with the 2B. The same kind of strength, pressing on, this is a 4B, again is a little bit darker, and then with the 8B it goes darker still. And if you press on even harder with an 8B or even a 4B, you can get quite dark lines. So that's the 8B, this one's the 4B, and you can get much different grades and strength. Even with a 2B you can get quite dark and you can build it up, and it's just down to the pressure. And when you actually draw more, you'll start getting a bigger, flatter area on the end of the pencil. So imagine, you know, you've got the shape, you've got the nice sharp point of your pencil. As you draw more, you'll get a flatter edge on your pencil. So we can rub out what was the sharp point. And that space, that flatter edge, will allow you to fill a bigger area in with your shading, because you'll have that nice, large, flat shape. And the more drawing and more doodling you do, the more experimenting that you do, you'll actually find that you can utilise that, but also hold your pencil in a different angle and use the entire side, and you'll find that you'll get different kinds of marks. And whatever you're leaning on, you'll start, as you can see here, you'll get the grain of the wood from underneath. but you can use the side of your pencil completely, and that'll give you different marks and different tonal variations, that whatever you're drawing, you can utilize these wonderful marks that a pencil will make to then draw what you want to and enjoy. So it doesn't matter whether you're drawing mechanical objects or natural objects. Use the different angles, the side of the pencil, the top, the front, to make marks that will allow you to recreate and enjoy the drawing and do something that's really nice. Now again, as I said, you can smudge that with your finger and you can just push that around, but you do get a dirty finger. It goes black quite quickly. You can also use kitchen roll, that'll push it around. This is quite a smooth paper as well, I must say. This is what's called a hot press paper, so it's very, very smooth. Bristol board is another hot press paper. Normal sketchbooks are what's called cartridge paper, and it's got a slightly rougher edge, and that will take the pencil much better, and it'll allow you to smudge and smooth around in a good way. Now again, also here we have using the eraser, you can use that as a drawing tool to actually remove some of the pencil line, and that's a really good thing. But here we'll go back to the box, and I'll just take my 2B for now, and I'll fill a whole lot in, and don't be afraid of going over the lines. You know, you're doing a quick sketch, and that's a good fun thing that you can do, and you can fill it in, and that's one set of lines that have gone over. Remember, the light's coming from this direction, so this wall should be a bit lighter. Then in these two sections, if you go over it again in the same direction, fill those two. The top section's got two sets of lines, so is the side. So this area is now only got one set of lines. This is the cross hatching. And then if you go over the third side, which will be the darker shadow side, with a third line, all of a sudden you get lighter, slightly darker on the top, and even darker in the shadow side. Again, you can just put a shadow underneath very quickly and behind, so that gives it some kind of form that it's actually sitting on the ground on something. But again, then you can just start to experiment. Use a darker pencil if you want. You know, this is the 8B, use the side and experiment, and you can really make that dark. The very back left hand corner will probably be the darkest still. And this is all shading is, you know, and practice doing this. You can do lots of squares and circles and shapes, and it'll allow you, if you look at the different shapes, to build up techniques that you can then apply to whatever subject it is that you want to draw. So if you draw that and then focus and try and get it up to the edge of the line so that it's a bit fuller and you've not got all of the edge built in, and then you can just do the same thing. Even with an 8B, if you just hold it lightly, you can draw that up and fill that in, and you start to see that the tone gets better. So the back will be a little bit darker because the light's hitting this front part here, and like I say, down the bottom right hand corner is where the darkest point will be. And so now you're really seeing that it's got a three-dimensional form. The light's attacking the front, you've got the slightly darker shade on the top and the darker shadow right on this right hand side. Again, using the kitchen roll, you can really smudge it and smooth it around. You can experiment making different marks using an eraser. If you want it a little bit lighter up at the top, just rub some out. You can see how that's then pulling pencil off the paper, then you can smudge it back in, and this way making marks allows you to then create the illusion of whatever object it is that you want to actually draw and show people. So as I say, that's a very simple cube. We're now coming up to World Cup time. This is football, soccer for anyone who's in the USA. And spheres are an interesting thing. It's again the same with tubes. So as I said in the first one, use something like a plate or a coin if you want an absolutely perfect circle, because you'll never draw a perfect circle by hand. And if you draw that shape, so you've got your soccer ball, There's your absolute perfect circle. And again, if the light's coming from this direction, this area here is going to have to be your lightest point. The darkest point is going to be down here. But with anything that's got a curve to it, if you can see here, you get a highlight down the inside in the shadow. So you've not just got the solid dark as you have in the box, you then get a reflected light that will turn up down on the inside of the shadow curve. And even on the inside, in there, you can see that there's even highlights that are inside. And it's the same with a football or a soccer ball. So you need to have the dark shade is going to come down here. Here I've got a 4B pencil. So I'm just going to quickly put in the dark shade, or a slightly darker tone. This is a bit of a middle tone. And sometimes if you've got things on the drawing surface underneath, you can see you'll get little noggins of really dark patches as that's pressed through. But that's the beauty. If you're using a sketchbook, you've got all the layers of paper, the layers underneath will stop these little blemishes. So when I'm doing very high-end art like the Guy Martin drawing I showed you earlier, I make sure I have a very, very clean, smooth board, and I put another piece of paper underneath it. And that allows me to make sure that all of the art is then kept very, very pristine. So here I'm drawing a slightly lighter tone. And don't be afraid of going over the line, because if you want that gone afterwards, just simply use your rubber and erase it off. But also on the top corner, there will be a slight shadow, whereas the highlight will be here. You will obviously have a light going around right across the top, but the lighter point will be here, but there will also be shading because of the gradient and contour of the ball as it goes around. Again, this is very, 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 very quick, just so that you can see the effect of drawing curved shapes and surfaces. Now, this is kind of using shading and cross-hatching together. Again, you can use your finger and you can smudge, but I'll really push that around using the kitchen towel, and you can push that and you'll get your different tones. And you can really enjoy smudging. It is great. It's such a nice thing. That's one thing, again, I'll keep reiterating whatever how to draw video that I do. It's just enjoy it. That's what I did. I used to draw comics originally, copy cartoons, the Dandy and Beano, and then as I got older I got into 2000 AD and Batman and all of that kind of thing. And it was just an enjoyable thing. And to this day, I just love being able to draw and to paint. So straight away you can see here, you've got the shape and the shade and the shadow, and you've got the lighter point here, but then you've also got this lighter highlight at the outside of the ball around the top. Now straight away I'll just erase off where I've drawn over the outside lines, and I'll take my 8B pencil and the light will get less as it comes around the top. The darkest point of the light coming from this direction will be about here. So here I'll draw in a shape. So imagine it's on the ground and you've got the shadow. You've got an ellipse of the shadow of the ball where that's coming. You've got the grass and of the ball sitting on the field. This could be a marble or anything, ball bearing. But with the World Cup, it's going to be soccer crazy for 2014. I don't know which team you want to win. Obviously, I'm from England. It would be nice to see the English boys win because they haven't won since 1966. Though I'm not really a football fan. I do mainly motorsport drawings. But I understand how people go nuts for their football team. The Brazilians will obviously have a massive crowd following them, and that would be absolutely fantastic to see them do well again. Pele will be rooting for them. All the people who are starting to follow soccer in the USA team are going to have a lot of following. But will it be Spain? Will it be Italy? Will it be France? We don't know. We will find out soon. But this is the thing with soccer, it's got an absolutely massive global following. The Premiership in the UK, the European Championships, and now with Beckham going over to the USA and promoting soccer over there, it's doing great guns over in the United States of America, so there will be a lot of interest in the World Cup. But again, a football, a sphere, gives me a great thing to actually show you how shading is a vital part of your drawing when you actually come to do your own drawings and your own pictures. So again, that's just smudging and pushing it down, and I can darken that down a little bit underneath. And it's absolutely great. Now if this was a football, as you can see anyway, there's the lightest point, you've got the light going around the top and the darker shade going around. If this was a football, it would have the hexagons that are on it. But again, the hexagons are just shapes, and as they go round, they will give the ball more shape and contours, which is absolutely lovely. And you just start to see the image of the ball come together in a much more understandable way with how the light works on all the shapes. Again, I'll go back to a 2B pencil, because unlike a Casey on these leather footballs, there's going to be a little contour there. So again, the light's coming from this direction, and you can just add a little bit of shadow to that underside to each one. Again, I'm doing this very, very quickly just so that you can see it, and you can mess about as much as you like, as much time as you've got, because as I said, just enjoy practicing drawing. Again, in the darker bits, that would need a little bit of a darker shadow underneath where the leather's stitched together and the case has got the shape, and you can do that all the way around the ball. And again, this is where the putty rubber is absolutely fantastic, because where the leather in these darker areas is stitched together, you'll get what's called reflected light. You can knead your putty rubber to a quick point, and you can just put a little highlight in, and you see how that then gives that shape and form. And you can just go around the casey and you can do a bit of the reflected light right underneath the bottom. And each one of the little shapes that make up the sections on the football, you can just put a slight little highlight on, and it gives it that little bit extra form and dynamic that makes it look really, really nice. Again, textures, you've got to figure out, is it a soft texture, has it got a sharp highlight? Metals, chromes, plastics can all be shiny and sharp, and these footballs have got a slightly shiny surface most of the time, so they will have these little light points that you can pull off. So straight away you've got all these little highlights that build it up, but the light's coming down here, the lightest point is on the ball coming on this point. You've got a shadow that goes around the top, giving it form of the shape around, and then you've got the highlight around the back. You've got the shadows on each of the sections, and the highlights in the very dark shadows of the ball underneath as it's resting on the ground. But again, do remember, everything's made up of the shapes. So you can draw squares, triangles, circles, boxes, and that will allow you to build up your images, as I showed you in part 1. So you can draw anything to actually then shade in and spend your time just developing the drawings. So again, look at the Rob Austin racing car and you'll see a full drawing actually being shaded from start to finish, from the blank piece of paper to the finished piece of artwork. And then just enjoy and experiment all of your own drawing and be creative, have fun, and that's the most important thing. So whether you're into soccer and you're watching the World Cup this year, or whether you're into wildlife or nature, or whether you just enjoy drawing and doodling while you're watching TV, have fun. And these basics, hopefully how to use shapes to draw anything from a bird, a bee, a flea, a tree, a horse or a house or anything else, right the way through to the shading. will hopefully give you the impetus, and if you keep watching my videos, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel and you'll see all the new work that I do. Hopefully it'll inspire you to draw and paint the things that you love. But thank you for watching again, please do subscribe, and I look forward to hopefully seeing some of your art maybe. Ta-da.